So you guys wondering what Nasspacker is doing inside the mall, right? That's not usually where I go. Well, this mall is a very interesting one. It's named after Ibn Battuta, one of the OG backpackers of all time. In the 13th century, he traveled around the whole world and wrote about all his trips in a book called Rihla. And I can relate to Ibn Battuta for 3 reasons. Number 1, he's Moroccan. I'm from Moroccan accent. Yeah, he's from Tangiers. Number 2, he backpacked all over the world, and that's something that really speaks to me. And number 3, he wrote about it, and he has these really crazy stories from all the places that he went to. So let's see together, where did Ibn Battuta go during his trips? Come on.
The United Arab Emirates has over 100 shopping malls, each bigger, shinier, and more luxurious than the last. Most of them are not really Nasspacker material, but this one is different. The Ibn Battuta Mall isn't just a place to shop. It's built around the journey of one man, Ibn Battuta, a Moroccan traveler who left home at 21 years old and never stopped moving. He crossed desert, survived shipwrecks, served kings, got robbed, got rich, and wrote it all down in a book called Rihla. And what's wild is I kind of relate to him more than I ever expected. He was curious, restless, always torn between adventure and home. So today, we're not just visiting a mall, we're walking through the life of one of the greatest travelers in history, and maybe a piece of my own story too. And here we go for this Nasspacker video about Ibn Battuta Mall, but most of all about the story of his life.
So this is the area basically where he's supposed to have grown up. So this is supposed to represent Andalusia, the south of Spain that was under Muslim rule for 700 years. So both Morocco and Andalusia, and the deeper into the mall, and the more we will see where he went into his journeys.
So here it all begins. A young Ibn Battuta still in Morocco, Tangiers, inspired by the scholars of Al-Andalus, the knowledge, the poetry, the call to explore beyond the known. It's the spark. He could have had a very nice job had he stayed in Morocco, but he decided to go on a pilgrimage that usually at this time used to take at least 16 months. But little did he know that it would take him 24 years full of adventures before he'd come back home. Although it's very modern with many stores, the decorations, the roofs, all transport you back in time.
One of the particularities about this mall is that everywhere you go, they show you about the great accomplishment of Muslim scientists at the time, the scientists of the countries that they visited. So in here, for instance, you have Was Ibn Battuta, who was one of the early researcher about flights, and how today we have all airlines and airplanes and all that stuff.
Long before the Wright brothers or Da Vinci, Abbas ibn Firnas, a 9th century Andalusian inventor, strapped on wings and actually tried to fly. He was a poet, an engineer, and a mad genius. He leaped into the sky, he built wings, jumped off a tower, and lived to tell the tale. Ibn Battuta Mall is divided in sections that they call court, and each court represents a region that he has visited in his trips.
Okay, so this is one of the first places that he went to, and this is representing Tunisia. So Tunisia is one of the first stops in his trip. The first trip that he did, it was actually to go for the pilgrimage that we call Hajj. He was from Morocco, so crossing all North Africa, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, at the time that were not countries, and then going all the way to Mecca. So one of the first stops is in Tunisia. And what you see in here is representing the blue houses of the island of Jerba in Tunisia.
So far, he go all the way to Tunisia, crossing modern Morocco, Algeria, and stopping in there. At this point, he still has his objective clearly in mind, Mecca, and is not suspecting that any other thing would come to disturb his objective.
Second step of the journey of Ibn Battuta, or second major step, Egypt. So this area represents Egypt, and Egypt has a big part of all his trips because he used to go back and forth many times in pilgrimage in Mecca, and Cairo used to be one of the major centers at the time.
He reached Egypt, Dunya, as they call it in Arabic, which means the mother of the world, a country so ancient with so much history. He first reached in the port of Alexandria and then went to Cairo during his golden age, full of scholars, markets, mystery. He was no longer just a traveler, he was learning about how to belong wherever he went.
What you have behind me is a representation of what is a way the Arabs at the time had to map the sky.
Way before Google Maps and the GPS, Muslim travelers invented and used the astrolabe, a pocket-sized universe that could track stars, tell time, and guide them across deserts and seas.
So this area is more of the Islamic Arabic style, but if we go a little bit deeper in there, you get to see more of the ancient Egypt, which is also quite cool. So let's go check it out.
In Cairo, he met two different sheikhs or local leaders that actually told him that they predicted his arrival and his destiny as a world traveler. One of them told him to go see his brothers in India and in China. And this is what started to put a spark in Ibn Battuta's mind. However, at this stage, he's still focused on going to Mecca. So this is why he decides to sail on the Nile southwards to try to go to the Red Sea and then cross to Mecca. But in there, something happened. He arrived exactly at the wrong time, at the wrong place, where a local uprising just shook all his plans. Consequently, he had to go all the way back to Cairo, and that was the occasion for him to go visit Damascus in Syria, crossing through Palestine cities like Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and Hebron. So he decided to spend the month of Ramadan in Syria, and then he went to modern Saudi Arabia, crossing through Medina and all the way to Mecca.
So this is the food court. You have all types of restaurants that you want to have. So in here you have a Turkish restaurant, Japanese, you have Mexican, Korean food, Russian food, Thai food, Indian street food. What you gonna eat?
I don't know, too many choices.
Too many choices, huh? You can't choose.
The food court was so overwhelming that we decided to find a proper restaurant inside the mall, sit down and have some healthy food.
Let's eat, yeah? Let's go.
Now that we are refueled, it's time for us to continue the journey of Ibn Battuta. At this point, with his objective already completed, you could have thought that he would have gone back home. But no, the spark of traveling hit him. And this is when he decided to go all the way to Persia, modern Iran.
Step 4 in the mall is Persia cluster.
In Persia, he discovered a place of poetry and elegance. He saw the beauty of cultures different from his own and started realizing that the world wasn't just about distance, it's about depth. He admired the elegance of cities like Shiraz or Isfahan that are represented here in this area of the Ibn Battuta Mall.
In here, it relates with anything in Central Asia. Actually, when I was in Central Asia in Uzbekistan, in Samarkand, Bukhara, Khiva, I saw lots of places that Ibn Battuta visited.
If you remember from my videos in Samarkand, Uzbekistan, this is exactly what I was thinking about. I was visualizing how Ibn Battuta saw the city at the time through his eyes, seeing it as a bustling, huge center of the Silk Road.
One very interesting fact is that one of the first backpackers of the history, Ibn Battuta, the Moroccan explorer from the 14th century, came all the way to here and described the city. Imagine the city at the time. It was so busy that it was impossible to find one's way within a crowd.
If you're interested in any kind of videos, you can check right here the video for Uzbekistan. Now in here, he visited the place and at the time described it as one of the biggest cities he's ever seen in the world. It was so crowded. Lots of madrasas, lots of beautiful Islamic architecture, and this is what in here they're trying to represent.
After this, he went to modern Iraq, went back to Mecca, went all the way to East Africa, came back, went to Turkey, went all the way to Central Asia with many stories happening to him. Crossed through a little bit of southern Russia, went all the way to the city of Samarkand.
This is another country that Ibn Battuta visited and I had a chance to visit as well. It's India. So this is the India Court. In here you have a little bit the typical architecture of northern India. But what you have to know is that Ibn Battuta went to visit every country or every region at the time in this area. So Afghanistan, Pakistan, but also India, Sri Lanka, and even the Maldives.
So Ibn Battuta arrived in Delhi in 1334 and became a Qadi, which is a judge under Sultan Muhammad Tughlaq. He was showered with wealth, silver dinars, blankets of sugar, and a full mansion. He conveyed judgment, traveled with the Sultan, even though rumors say the Sultan kept him under a cloud of suspicion, never quite trusting him. In India, lots of adventures happened to him. He got kidnapped twice by Hindu rebels went to Pakistan, then came back and tried to go to Mecca, only to know that the Sultan would not allow him to resign until he convinced him to be part of a delegation that was heading to China to try to rebuild an old Buddhist temple. But actually other unexpected events made him go all the way to South India to try to go again to Mecca by the sea. His ship got destroyed by a storm. He had to go back to South India to seek the protection of the Sultan until the whole Sultanate, so the kingdom, actually collapsed. This is when he had to flee again on the sea, reaching the incredible islands of the Maldives. And to me, I cannot even imagine what he must have felt when he's seen this pristine islands and turquoise water with people traveling between each island. Today, the Maldives are synonym of holiday, luxury, or honeymoon travel. But at the time, it was quite different.
Let me show you a secret room.
Crazy.
What's up?
From there, he got to Sri Lanka, his ship got overthrown by pirates, and then he went all the way to Chittagong in modern Bangladesh, then to the northern tip of Sumatra Island in Indonesia, then to modern Singapore and Malaysia, until he reached his new objective, China.
Last step of the journey of Ibn Battuta is China, at least in the mall, because he also went to Africa. You have this beautiful port that you can see everywhere.
And this, to me, must have been mental. Can you imagine China at the time? Imperial China, completely different. Remember, at the time there was no television, no internet, no airplanes, which means that cultures were really different, evolving in silos with a little bit of influence through merchants and merchandise that would come all the way through the Silk Road. Believe it or not, at the time there were already Muslims in China who took him, showed him around the country and their local cultures. And then just imagine this, he finally went to Beijing to take a role as an ambassador for the Delhi Sultanate. A role he had accepted years ago before so many things happened to him. Not even knowing himself if at the specific time he was an ambassador at Delhi, the Sultan was still alive, if the Sultanate was still standing, or if he was just representing now a completely different thing. So after all this, he decided to go all the way back to Morocco in a very long trip, as you can imagine, with many more adventures. But then he reached with the bad news. Just a few months before he arrived, his parents actually passed away. Can you imagine you go back home after so many years and then you just realize that your parents died just a few months ago? Everything must have seemed so different and unnatural to him in a place where actually he was born. And just a few days later, his torn mind couldn't let him sleep, and he decided to go again. He went to Al-Andalus, he went all the way to Mali in Western Africa, all the way to the Central Sahara, until the Sultan of Morocco called him back and asked him to write a book about all his trips and his adventures. I can relate so much because my mind and my heart are always so torn between the thrill of new adventures, discovering new cultures, and the loving comfort of home, family, friends, and loved ones. To be honest, I find this mall as such a great initiative in honoring his memory, but I'm still surprised how we don't have a movie or series or TV shows about the incredible stories lived by this man. If you're ever into adventure and traveling like I am, you're probably thinking the same. As I walked through Ibn Battuta's life, I couldn't help but think of Santiago from Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist. He also left home in search of a treasure, crossed deserts, met kings, faced danger, and followed omens. But in the end, the real treasure wasn't at the destination. It was what he discovered about himself along the way. Ibn Battuta didn't find gold, he found wisdom. He left as a pilgrim and came back as a storyteller. And maybe in some way, that's what I'm doing too.
This is the end of this video. If you really liked it, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you disagree, if you're saying that this is not the coolest mall in the UAE, if you prefer Dubai Mall or Mall of the Emirates, please comment or let me know if there's one that I don't even know. Yeah? See you.